Hello, everyone. Welcome to Team Talk. I am your co-host, Mark Iorio, along with my friend here, Milton Corsi.
Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to see everyone again today.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man.
Good, man. You looking good?
Always.
Vest?
Yeah, I try.
Yeah?
Trying to keep up with you.
Pete and I, we corresponded. We made sure the blue suit, we had the blue suit and the yellow tie.
Yeah.
The only problem with him is that he forgot that we were supposed to wear blue shirt.
Is that it?
He's got a yellow shirt.
There you go.
Pete, welcome.
Thank you.
Pete Mauro, Chief Technology Officer, right?
Chief Cyber Technology
Officer at Gryphon Technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Gryphon.
Yes, Gryphon.
Yeah. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great to be here. Milton called me the other day, and it's perfect timing on some of the stuff we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, cyber technology. I mean, it's a growing business, Pete. It's a perfect time for us to be talking about what we discuss here on Team Talk is about how to include a more diverse, more inclusive team. And, in today's day and age, you need people around the table that have different thoughts about how to attack a problem. And in your industry, especially, you've got to have people who are creative, that think differently, because a lot of times you're facing something that is really different and unique.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that?
So you hit on a good point. Cybersecurity is an area where you don't have to be a core engineer or a core network specialist to actually have attributes that help solve problems, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have people that also think like the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
You're limiting your solution set. And how do you increase that solution set? By being more diverse and inclusive to the wide range of people out there that can work for you, versus a specific sector that you may have traditionally looked at.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
When you talk about being inclusive or diverse around the table, what are you looking for in a person, Pete? What are those skill sets that you need to have?
So I thought about this because we have just kicked off our inaugural, at Gryphon, we've kicked off an inaugural first time Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. Because although I believe we're good at having a diverse and inclusive team, you always have to improve, and sometimes you have to proactively focus on things. So first you have to understand what inclusion means, right? What does it mean? So that could be a complex question sometimes. It could even be diverse. I mean, people could have very heated heated discussions about it.
Yeah.
But, I'm an engineer. Engineers break things down into their simplest components, and then we fix one little thing at a time, and then at the end of the day, you have a solution.
Right.
So at its core, inclusion is simple. It's only looking at the relevant characteristics needed, right? It's not looking at irrelevant and unrelated characteristics, and that's what people tend to do, and sometimes they do it unknowingly because it's what they are used to. But if you only concentrate on the relevant and related characteristics of a person, then you can hire the right people, and you can have a more diverse set of people to choose from.
Wow.
Very interesting.
That is insightful, man. That's different from a lot of the things that you and I have been hearing for the last few years.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's a very engineering approach. Interesting the way you broke it down.
I'm an engineer.
Yeah. Thanks so much, bro. Listen. So you've kind of explained to us what it is, but why is it important? Why is it important, and what do you do at Gryphon to kind of make sure that it's happening?
So why I said this was perfect timing for this interview is because we just went through all this on our council, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Figuring out what our charter is, why we're doing this. So, the thing that comes to mind is it's the right thing to do, right? We want to include everybody, but we're a business, right?
Right.
So as much as that is the effect is you're doing the right thing.
Right.
But the reason a business wants to do this is because you want the most creative environment you can possibly foster, because that will get you the best solutions, right? If you only have perspectives of one angle of people, because that's where you traditionally look, because they're the people that have the very specific skill sets you were looking for, you're only going to get that type of answer. But when you widen it, right, then you have a much more diverse set of solutions to choose from, and by probability, you have a better solution at the end of the day because you have a bigger set to choose from. A guy I work with for the government said that he had taken a class a long time ago, and one thing that stuck out in his head, he said, by probability, a company that looks at all these places for their talent is going to be better than a company that only looks in these places. Even if these places are traditionally where the better people come out of, you're still looking in there. You're just looking in a wider range, and that's why it's important to a business.
Okay, well, great. It sounds like to me that you made a business case for inclusion. It's not just simply about doing the right thing, but there's a real value add for a company. So it adds to the bottom line, right?
100%. I've lived it. It's true. I promise.
Okay, fantastic. So,
You know, one of the things that we struggle with, Pete, or companies struggle with, is how to do it. You know, we talk about the fact that we need to do it. We need to bring more diverse thinkers to the table, more inclusive organizations, whether it's in any department too. It could be finance, it could be IT, it could be sales or marketing, administration, executive suite. How do you go about doing it? How do you make the commitment and actually make it happen?
I got a relatively easy answer.
Okay.
It's not easy, but the answer is easy. You just have to work on it, right? And here's one key when you talk about specific things to do. Look at your position descriptions. Look at where you're looking for talent, right? When you have a position description, they usually have required and desired.
Right.
You got to look really hard at what is required, because people put too many things in that column when they really desire those things. And when you put too much in the required bin, you eliminate people. Put those in the desired. You still get to interview the person. You still get to look at character and all the other facets of the person. But look at what you do with respect to desired versus required. So that's a specific thing you do. The softer skill, you got to look everywhere. When you're looking for talent, especially in a small business, you worked with me.
Sure.
You must, it is not a 9-to-5 job recruiting. I have been at Radio Shack fixing a phone, and I have saw that a young lady she knew a lot about technology, and she's working behind the counter at Radio Shack, which is fine.
Sure.
But I said,
Retail.
I interviewed her right there. I gave her my card. I told her why I was talking to her. I told her why I was asking questions. I mean, you got to be looking for talent in all aspects of your day. You can't it can't be a 9-to-5 in a bubble. You have to look everywhere.
Yeah.
Mark, I really think that he said something, as I was listening to your answer, something really jumped out at me. And it was the idea of that whole, required and desired thing, right? And because you're right, I think that oftentimes when people put together those position descriptions, the required is kind of like, this is how I can eliminate people, right? So that I'm not going to look at enough people, because if you need to have these 4 check marks, if you don't, you're out. So I love the idea that if you reduce those numbers to the bare essentials, here's what you must have, it makes it more challenging for us to kind of filter, but it creates a greater opportunity to get a more diverse force.
It does, and I know it because if I told you the makeup of my staff in some of the areas of our business, you'd be surprised. So it really does work.
Cool. Yeah, when you were saying earlier too, Pete, that you've got, it's fun. It's not funny, but it's funny if you don't have people around the table that think like the bad actors out there.
That's right.
You're in your industry, you're in trouble, because if you have sort of a conservative thinking person that handles and attacks a problem in one specific way, you're not going to solve, in a place like Gryphon, you're not going to solve the issues that clients come to you with, especially given what's out there with malware and cyber attacks.
That's right.
And those sorts of things, right?
Yeah, you need to think like the bad guys. I mean, I said it simply. If you only think like the good guys, you're not going to come up with all the restrictions and answers you need to stop the bad guys.
We're going to transition a little bit from how you get more inclusive people in the organization to how, as Chief Cyber Technology Officer of Gryphon, Pete, how do you get everyone in the organization to sort of row in the same direction or row in the right direction? It's not so much the same direction, because as we know, you can be out there rowing away, and then all of a sudden, about an hour later, you find out that you're way off course.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
So if you want to build a team that is all working towards a common goal, right? But you need them to go in different directions because you don't know all the different answers yet. You need to leverage off the basic differences of everybody, right? So for instance, we started this council, and we could right away have the 10 people on the council go looking at organizations to team with and looking for things that will help our company. Why would we do that in a blind way when we have 1,800 employees that have existing relationships with people and organizations? You know, so we started polling our own organization, saying, who do you already work with to help build teams, to help a diverse and included environment? So now we're going to get hundreds of responses, but we're going to leverage off of our existing people first before we go look outside. So when you do that, it does two things.
Okay.
It cuts to the chase, because now you are starting from an existing relationship with an organization that can help you, and not from scratch. And two, it inherently makes your entire organization feel included, because you're asking them for their input first before you go do anything. So even the people that had no input, they now feel included because they see that you're really saying what you're doing and doing what you're saying, because you're including them in your council, even though there's only 10 people on the council to start.
Yeah. It's important for people to feel like they're part of the organization, and not just you know, the platitudes a lot of times that, or checking the box in a sense that, you know, oh, you're part of this group. We're not going to listen to you, but you're part of the group, and you never say that to them. But having them be part of an organization and really value their input is critical.
Yeah. So that's a funny thing, because a long time ago, I would consciously make sure I, you know, included everybody. And sometimes, I'm human, sometimes I would just do it to make someone feel included, and in the back of my mind, I did not think anything would come of it. But, you know, when I did that at times, it did. And I hired a former nursing student to come in and do work, and now he's one of our best modelers.
Wow.
So you can't, you got to be open-minded, right? So you know, the culture you want to build at your company, at your team, whatever it is you want to build an open-minded culture. And that's hard to do sometimes, especially with some people who aren't as open-minded as others. But that is the success. If you can build an open-minded team, then it opens doors to a lot of different things.
Yeah. You know, Pete, you mentioned something. I'm going to go a little off script right now. You know, but you mentioned something that really is, I think, is significant. You talked about the culture of your organization. Now, like, how important do you think that, you know, building a culture is to your organization's overall long-term success? Like, how important is that?
So I'm not going to go off on this tangent, but I'm going to tell you that I have a charity, and the motto of the charity is, it's not what you want to become in life, but who that matters. And when you think about that statement, okay, why is it important to a company? Why is it important to me? You know, the people matter. When you make people matter, success follows. That's how it works. That's how it works in a sports team. That's how it works in a company, and that's how it works in your family at home.
Yeah. No, that's
people matter is the short answer.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
And you got to put your money where your mouth is, Pete. I think a lot of times people say people matter and then they really don't matter. But in your case, you could see it. You could see it in the way you do business. You could see it in your eyes that people do matter and they care about you. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more about what Gryphon does. Tell us a little bit about the company.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
The 2020 election is right around the corner. RVN TV encourages you to register and vote. To get information about how to register and the different methods to vote this election season, visit vote.gov. Every vote counts, so don't delay.
Okay.
Well, sorry, go ahead, buddy.
No, say, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Pete Mauro from Gryphon Technologies. And Pete, right before the break, Mark mentioned that he's going to ask you a little bit about what Gryphon does and how they help their employees. So I'm going to give you the opportunity right now to kind of share with us exactly what Gryphon Technologies does and how they help their clients.
So I was a small business about a year and a half ago, and I did a lot of work as a subcontractor to Gryphon Technologies in the cyberspace. And Gryphon is a holistic engineering firm in the DoD space, working for the government. We do a holistic bunch of things, strong in engineering, public web. We do a lot of DARPA work. But they bought my company as more like lighter fluid in the digital engineering and cyberspace to kind of spread that type of technology and that work across the whole enterprise. So since the acquisition in July of 19, we have been working across the enterprise through the 3 divisions with all the different project leads, if you will, in helping them transition from a more static-based system engineering approach to a more dynamic digital engineering approach. And the reason why I do that as the cyber technology officer is because cyber couldn't do it in a static environment. There's too many variables, things move too fast for you to move in a static environment. So I like to think of cyber as jump-starting the digital transformation in my space, because we absolutely couldn't do it the old way. Some of the other disciplines or domains, you can just throw money and people and get there. In the cyberspace, you can't do that. It moves too fast, and you need to use digital engineering, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, machine learning. You need to use these things. The Amazons and the Googles, they did this a while ago, right? When you go online and you look at a pair of sneakers, it's no secret that you get ads then the rest of the week for sneaker sales, right?
Tell me about it.
Well, the DoD is as important as the things we work on, we're a little behind in that area, and the DoD itself has made a huge push over the last 5 to 7 years, maybe, in coming up with a strategy on how to change that. And I think Gryphon, with our customers, is leading that charge for the DoD. Specifically, our biggest customer is the Navy.
What have you seen over the last 5 years, Pete, that's changed so much in the industry, in your industry?
There's a term we use, the speed of relevance. So what's one person's fast or fast enough is different than another person's. So if you're not moving at the speed of relevance, so if you're moving fast, but the enemy or industry is moving faster than you, you're not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to get into a vertical of the DoD's acquisition challenges, but it's hard because we buy things and then 5 years later we put them on a ship. So that's hard enough with regular technology, right? But with cyber, I mean, things change by the minute, not even by the day.
Right.
So you need to be able to take a real-time threat, a zero-day threat, as they call them, and you need to be able to figure out how that infiltrates your system, like now. Like, you can't wait a day or a week. You need to understand how to disconnect systems so it doesn't infiltrate. You need to understand what is affected, what missions you can still perform, and what missions you can't perform. And you need to do that fast. And that's where digital transformation has really been used in our domain, the cyber domain.
Yeah. You know, I got a follow-up question to that. You know, Milt knows this. I run a nonprofit, Pete, where we collect computers from corporations all over the place, schools, universities, et cetera. And we refurbish them, put a new hard drive in, and give them to people who are underprivileged nonprofits throughout the community. We've given away this year alone over 1,000 computers.
That's great.
Now, the reason I'm asking you this question is because out of that, we see kids who want to learn how to code, who are inner city kids that you would think, yeah, they don't have any interest in that because they want to do something else, but they really are interested. And a lot of times there's diamonds in the rough there. How do you guys go out and find those diamonds in the rough that are, you know, those aspiring kids, young adults out there who, you know, can outthink the bad actors that you're talking about, and their minds are completely broad and wide open. How do you go about doing that?
That's probably the toughest question you're going to ask. There's no easy answer. We do a lot of STEM stuff, so we're going into schools when the kids are younger to try to get them interested in these things. So I ran a project at the collegiate level that I'm now looking to run at the high school level.
Wow.
Very cool.
I have a van. I'm an out-of-the-box thinker. I don't know if you remember, but
just a little bit.
It's too expensive for me to rent office space, so I
Okay.
bought a large van
Okay.
that is like an office, and it was my office everywhere. So being a cyber guy, I had to make sure the security was sound.
Yep.
So I had our cyber guys, make sure it was hardened and you couldn't break in. And I sit on Rowan's Electrical and Computer Engineering Advisory Council. So I worked with the Dean of Engineering, who's now the provost over there, Tony Lohman, and their Dean for ECE, and we did a project where we had kids hack into the van.
Wow.
So I'm looking to do like hackathons at high schools.
Wow.
And then from there, you give out your card, you promote your company, and kids that are really interested, they get back to you. So it's definitely not easy because, to be honest, when you give a kid an old 486 or whatever the computer is, it's tough to do some of the things you need to do on an older processor.
Right.
So some of the kids need to have some exposure to some of the newer technology to be able to do the things that they want to do. But that's how I've recruited for regular engineers as well as software developers.
That is brilliant, man.
It really is.
See, that helps close our loop here with regard to inclusion and diversity. You're going out to areas that, maybe a lot of times these kids are not really exposed to stuff like that, but when they see it, they love it.
Absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Pete, is, I'm a big energy guy. I can feel your energy coming off, how excited and passionate you are about this stuff, right? It's amazing to me. Like, where does that come from? Like, what's the why? Why do you consistently reach out through your nonprofit work, through your other things? What drives you like that, man?
So a bunch of things. Okay. When I left the DoD as a civil servant, it was a hard decision because I love the industry. It gives you a job satisfaction outside of money. And I had to do some soul searching, right? And what I came up with basically was, if I'm accomplishing something and I'm doing something good, that's what drives me. So that's the simple answer.
Okay.
Now to combine that with our conversation,
right,
as well as kids, is I love kids. I have 5 of my own through unnatural ways, but they're all my kids. I love them all.
Understood.
And when you pair kids and work, then you kind of get a real good flavor of what we're talking about today, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Educating kids while diversifying your own network. So kids, accomplishment, doing good is what drives me. Now, specifically at Gryphon, not to border on the corny too much, but cyber's not going away. It's not a fad. It's not something that is going to disappear.
Right.
It's real. It's only increasing in frequency, magnitude, and effect. And I can tell you this, the work we do is so important, not just to the DoD, but to the country. If you take down our power grid, you take down our banking system, you don't have to blow things up to cripple a country. And these things can all now be done from hundreds of thousands of miles away,
right,
by people sitting in a basement. Whether it's a nation state or just a small group of bad people, you need to protect and you need to keep up the protection, and it doesn't go away. So what drives me is accomplishing that today with Gryphon and the rest of our DoD partners and our customers.
Thank God we have people like you around there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like things I hadn't even thought of.
No,
that happens all the time.
Can you share a case study with us without mentioning any company names or anything, but something you're really proud of, Pete, that you've done with your own business or Gryphon?
Yeah, so I gotta use digital transformation and cyber as that case. So about 5 years ago, we were posed with this problem and we couldn't solve it on figuring out how to assess complicated, complex weapon systems for cyber vulnerabilities, right? You can't fix things if you don't know what's broke or what's vulnerable. So I went out, and I didn't go out and say, I'm going to be diverse. I just went out, and I went to different places, and I landed at Drexel.
Okay.
And I found a graduating PhD in cybersecurity, and he is our lead cyber trainer today. He is a professor at Drexel, Dr. Thomas Heverin, and he helps us in all of our aspects of cyber. And when I hired him back in 2015-ish, he, along with a few other folks on the Navy and our side, came up with a way to assess cyber. and it's under provisional patent by the Navy, not by my company. It's a serious enabling technology for the Navy right now, and we're spreading it as a company because we're across the DoD. And we have hired a diverse group of people. So we have not only an ex-nursing student, we also have a former professional football player that didn't make it as much as he wanted to.
Sure.
But he had an IT background, and he's one of our key modelers.
Wow.
Very cool.
Off the core stuff, onto the corporate side, one of our senior accountants was the old Best Buy employee.
Okay.
My old VP, Christina Perry, she was an out-of-work psychology major when I hired her. So you got to look past the paper.
Yeah.
Right? You got to look at grade A people that are organized, they're hardworking, they have good ethics, good morals. You can train most of the rest of the stuff. There are limitations, right?
Sure.
If you need somebody to design the next, greatest weapon system or processor, you're going to need somebody with an engineering degree and background.
Yeah, of course.
But companies don't need all those people.
Right.
They could really use other folks
Very
that have
interesting.
a diverse set of skills.
That's cool. That's great.
Yeah, I really think you got to. It's been great, Pete. Really enjoyed the conversation so far. Some really interesting things. I think to me one of the key takeaways I get from this, right, is that you hire for for fit, like the person who's going to have a skill set or a fit within your organization, and then we can train them up on these other things. Really good stuff. Last question for you, my friend. And you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with about like who or what inspires you? Is there somebody who's a role model for you or something of that nature?
So Pam Braden is our CEO, and she is spectacular. When I met with her and talked about the initial discussion about joining Gryphon with my close-knit group of small team,
right. Mm-hmm.
I learned very quickly that her larger organization had a very similar culture. So I learn a lot from her every day. And between her and the backing of our private equity firm, they give us not only the resources, but the flexibility, right? Resources are great, but if you're told exactly what to do, sometimes you can't get done what you think needs to be done.
Right.
So the resources and the flexibility. What we're trying to do and what she has created, bigger than what I have created, I'm just a piece now, is an inspiring story in and of itself. She does a lot with not just the work. She cares about the people, just like my legacy company did, as well as making a difference in our industry and in society. She does a lot outside of work that I don't know about, but I can kind of tell that she drives change, and that's inspiring to me.
Well, that's been, for us, that kind of stuff's inspiring to us, Pete. The whole premise of Team Talk is to talk about stuff like this, and you nailed it today. So thank you very much for joining us, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Love it.
Yeah.
Tell everybody how to get in touch with Gryphon.
Thank you for having me. Gryphon Technologies, we're based out of Washington, D.C. at 80M Street. GryphonTechnologies.com. If you have anything on cyber or diversity, inclusion, equity, I can be reached on my cell phone. I take personal calls all the time, 609-471-7725, and thanks for having me.
Pete, thanks
Pete,
for having me.
It was a real pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for Team Talk. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a great week and be safe.